Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order today's Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, December 10, 2024. Roll, please.
Singleton.
Here.
Deanne.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Present.
Young.
Here.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's move on to public hearing. Are there any citizens wishing to address the Planning Commission today?
You want me to
Or
read the
residents?
notice in first?
Oh, sorry. Never
Yes.
mind. Yes, public hearing. Never mind.
Okay.
All right,
Notice-
public hearing. Go ahead.
Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the Town of Haymarket will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Haymarket Town Hall located at 15000 Washington Street, Suite 100, Haymarket, Virginia, to consider a special use permit application for a religious assembly at 14600 Washington Street, Suite 155. The special use permit application materials are available on the town's website and for review at the town hall located at 15000 Washington Street between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. All meetings are open to the public, and the town of Haymarket does not discriminate on the basis of disability in admission or access to its programs and activities. The location of this public hearing is believed to be accessible to persons with disabilities. Any person with questions on the accessibility of the facility should contact the town clerk at the above address or by telephone at the above number.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Do we have any citizens who wish to address the Planning Commission regarding the public hearing, the SUP?
Sure. Can I say something over there, right?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for considering this. I think I would not start with expressing my gratitude to the staff of the town of Haymarket. They've been very helpful in putting this forward. I want to talk about this as in this SUP that we have submitted. It's definitely for religious use, and we have a large population of Muslim community here in Haymarket. And we would want to establish one small space for us to, a place for worship, for us to carry out our religious practices. And today, we do not have any such place in 13 to 15 mile radius, which is roughly 20 to 25 minutes of a drive. So over here, while we understand how things work in our religion and how things happen in a religious place, the kids, teens and other people who haven't seen the inside of such a place, they are currently unable to connect with the religion, with the religious practices. And for that, we wanted to put this place. The place is open for lease. We intend to utilize that space. What we learned is we need to have, if we are doing that for a religious purpose, we would need a special use permit. And for this special use permit, I think the use is more or less similar in nature to what we already have happening in the same premises. There are 2 restaurants and there is a fitness center. On good days, the use that we are doing is going to be more or less same in nature. The same number of crowd is going to be in there, 10 to 20 people. There will be certain exceptions. When I say exceptions, that includes a Friday service that happens in the early hours of afternoon every Friday. That is the time when we'll expect more crowd coming in. So, having said that, I think what we would want to do is give a place to our kids, our teens to connect with, to ensure that we are also able to practice our religion in congregation, do our prayers whenever we can.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. And also, most likely, it sounds like you are the applicant?
Yes, I'm also the applicant.
Okay.
So,
So during the agenda, section of this meeting,
Yeah.
we're going to also be interacting with you in terms of questions and so forth.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
All right. Any other citizens?
I second everything that he has said.
Okay,
We are here for the kids. One of them is here, and we would like to have this place, please. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Right, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, in that case, I'll close the public hearing and move on to the next agenda item, which is citizens' time. Are there any citizens wishing to address the planning commission today? In relation to the SUP or anything else? It doesn't have to be the SUP. No? All right, I'll close the citizens' time. Minute approval. Do I have a motion to approve the planning commission meeting minutes from October 8th, 2024?
I make the motion to approve the meeting,
Okay, do I have a
few
second?
minutes.
I have the second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, agenda item, consideration for SUP number 2024-002, Religious Assembly at 14600 Washington Street. Thomas,
Good evening, Commission. To introduce this application for SUP 2024-002, I wanted to bring up just the general zoning in Haymarket. As I mentioned in the staff report, the current uses allow for religious assembly only by right at the transition commercial TC zone, which is about 4 or 5 adjacent properties within Haymarket. A lot of it necessitates or at least promotes in those areas redevelopment of existing properties. Everything else in the I-1 industrial, B2 business commercial, and B1 town center zones require a special use permit for approval for any sort of religious assembly. The application I have before you here tonight is for the Haymarket Islamic Center. They wish to operate one of the tenant spaces at the QBE building at 14600 Washington Street on the very far east side of town as a place of worship, mostly focused on the prayer services related to the Muslim faith. On site, as part of the staff report, it's surrounded by, or the space, the tenant space itself is surrounded by a lot of residential property, and then one multi-tenant space in Prince William County just adjacent to it. So the surrounding uses and future uses will all be residential for the most part, except for that one commercial space. Additionally, as part of the comprehensive plan, one moment. Haymarket unfolds, to quote it, Haymarket unfolds in a pleasant mix of older residential homes and low-intensity commercial uses as described in the comprehensive plan. This use as is by itself, there's a gray area because there's not a massive church assembly, but there's also not necessarily provisions in the zoning ordinance that provide for detailed accounts for occupancy for tenant spaces such as this for religious assembly. In my view, in the comprehensive plan, the general use for religious assembly as described meets that definition. As mentioned also, you'll see in the proposal from the applicant on packet page 14, it would just be one of 2 proposed tenant spaces used. The 2 that are brought up there are simply because of leasing, as was described earlier during the public hearing. As far as I described the use goes, I'm comfortable with recommendation of approval of this special use permit. My concerns mostly revolve around parking related to the special events. I calculated, generally speaking, parking tabulations if we add the gross floor area for all of the tenant spaces currently listed on Prince William County. I was generous on one end and a little more strict on another just to give a range. So if we're talking general business or office per 3,000 square feet of GFA, we're looking at about 111 to 112 required spaces for the site. At a more generous end, we're looking at, if we're going 1 per 250 for GFA, we're looking at 134 spaces about. So that's the parking range, existing conditions on site currently. And as you see in the applicant's proposal, there's a range of, depending on the prayer time and also the type of prayer and or celebration in this faith, it's varying degrees or numbers of people and also cars used to transport those individuals for worship. So with those considerations and any other questions available to the applicant, I currently am recommending approval of this with conditions related to parking. I'd like to invite the applicant as well to come up, answer any questions the commission may have, and we can commence discussion.
So what is going to be the maximum occupancy at a time during any of the prayers? Maybe let's say on Friday.
On Friday, is the way we control occupancy is if the occupancy is reaching a maximum number, which is like I'm just going to put a number out there, which says if 100 people are there. So what we would want to do is we would want to split it into two, and then do it maybe 45 minutes apart, two different congregations, 100 each. So we do not have a lot of people at the same time into the premises, not overwhelming the parking spaces. Initially, my take was it was 150 parking spaces over there. And when I got the special use permit signed by the owners, they did cut that, and you can see that over there. They replaced that with 185 of those. So I think with 100 people, if it's coming in, and I'm just saying ballpark, people will be carpooling. So we're expecting maybe some 60-ish cars at one time, so, which should suffice in those hours of the day, which is late afternoon, because that's not the Western peak time. We are past lunchtime. The timings is around two-ish, about 2 o'clock, between 2 and 3.
Okay, got it. And is that 165 parking space for the full shop, full area, full development, or just that site that they are going to
Just the
use?
tenant space?
Yeah.
What they're referencing will be the full area,
Full area, yeah.
the whole
area.
QBE site.
And the numbers that you have worked are for combining parking for all the uses together, right?
This tabulation was based on GFA of the whole site, yes.
Okay.
Has anybody looked at the occupation limitation for fire hazard or anything like that?
That is something I can look into
Okay.
related to fire, emergency, those kinds of things.
And it looks like during the week that wouldn't be much of an issue, but then on the Friday, and especially during Ramadan, even if you split it up, if you had 200 people and 100 people occupying, that may or may not be above the fire code. I don't know. We'd have to find that out.
And I, of course, want to thank you for your application here. And as Commissioner Singleton had mentioned, I was just curious, I mean, in our zoning ordinance, for parking determinations, it's based on seats. And we talked about attendees. How would you figure seats would figure into that aspect?
The way seating works in our religious occupancy places is people sit in the ground. So we are not doing any seating over there. It's going to be one hall, one big hall where they're going to line up for prayer space. If need be, I may have some pictures just to show you guys, and I can present it or email that to Thomas. He can share with you guys. So you have a better idea of how the place will be utilized. We do not expect a lot of furnitures in there. It's going to be the whole place is going to be carpeted, and then people are going to line up in there when it's time for prayer.
Thank you. And then I guess I go ahead some of the questions related to the parking aspect. As Tom's mentioned, this tabulation of parking, that's about what I was figuring when I was looking at the space. So it all kind of lines up there. The one question I had, though, is, and I noted, it's noted on the application other places, naming 150 spaces or crossed out 185. My question is, it appears, and I've recently looked at the site, that I wasn't calculating up to 185 spaces there. Is that including some of that field parking? That's first part of the question, and then.
Where the 185 number came from, I would have to double check that. Based on what I've looked at as well, it seems more in terms of impervious surface, parking related to that, it's more towards 150 than 185. But that is something I can double check.
Yes, please, because again, I was calculating about 140 or 50 or so that are actually, striped spaces. And on that note with the parking lot, given where on the property these suites would be located, I note that they're generally further from the main part of the parking. I was just curious if in some way how that can be managed. That's the application of the town. And also, currently there's, storage being utilized in some of that parking. Would there be some sort of agreement or arrangement for what's currently being stored to be cleared, maybe in some way to be used for parking. So if anyone can speak to that, that would be most appreciated.
No, that's right, because there has been some storage over there. We did see that. Also, I would want to just put one thing out there and for consideration, and to put things in perspective is one of the space over there, rather two spaces there, which are currently being leased, are leased to some storage spaces. So people are not actually coming in and out. It's just a storage for people coming in, putting things and all that. So unlike restaurants, unlike fitness centers, there are two spaces which are currently being rented as just storage spaces over there. Hardly one or two people come there, put things, grab things, take back. So overall, when you look at that, the total square footage, the gross square footage of the area, by that they have ample amount of parking. But I do see that the actually surface parking is striped surface parking that looks like adequate for the timing, but yes, there are other places, containers placed over there as well. I think when I have to talk to the owner about that once we start utilizing that, they may need to relocate those to another space, so all the spaces can be utilized.
Thank you. And I think for me, on my last question, well, I guess it's two-parter. You mentioned courses for religious services and that kind of space. Will it be used for any daycare, any school or anything like that, or just a worship space?
It's just a worship space. For the time being, no daycares we are planning. There are times when we have some public speaking. When I say public speaking, people gather. There's something we want to talk about in community, about anything, about any rituals. Then people come over there, but they are not like in a school term. They are not in a daycare style of term. For now, it's mainly for religious purposes or any gathering whenever it's required to speak to people.
Understood. Thank you. And then I think for my last question, just related to, we talked about the parking piece, but I guess relating to aspects of traffic. The reason I bring this up is even on Sundays at the Haymarket Baptist Church, the Haymarket Police are there directing traffic usually. Will there be any sort of that aspect with that kind of parking management or traffic management during services?
Actually, you're right. On Fridays, I think we would expect that some traffic manipulation will be required when people are coming in or leaving the premises after the prayer. So, and it will be, as you said, just like I do count about 3 different churches on this road, and I know when service happens on Sundays, that changes too. So on Fridays, I think that's similar arrangements will be required. We'll either have, if we can get support from town for some police to help us direct the traffic, or we'll have definitely our volunteers in there to assist with the traffic coming in and out of the premises.
Again, thank you for that information. I'll just go ahead and say, I mean, you look at the conference plans on North, I mean, it seems it's a very compatible type use. It's just these few questions here. So I thank you again for providing some clarification. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for asking the questions. Really appreciate that. You want to add something? I'm sorry. I know the public time is over, but just want to express because he's one of the guys who's been oldest here, so I'm sure he has something to add.
My apologies, I was late. I missed the subject, was the title on the very first agenda. I've been volunteering in many places, many religious places, volunteer for donation, gathering clothing for tornado victims, any flooding, any these occurrences that happens in Mother Nature. That happens through in our lives, that comes in and swipes in and goes out. So when it comes to facilities, religious facilities that I've been volunteer parking lot, I've been attending parking lot, volunteer parking lot. I want to make sure that there's always a reminder before and after the prayer. We always remind everyone to adhere to the parking speed. Make sure everything's obeyed according to the volunteers. Either to make sure the parking float is coming in smoothly and exiting smoothly, obeying to what the attendant is saying, the volunteer is saying. So that's another thing. This facility possibly could be used for donating clothes, foods, stuff like that. Which is always a plus for any floodings or earthquake or any tornado victims. For kids, especially, we want to make sure kids are in control. Kids are not roaming around in streets, doing what not doing what they're supposed to be doing, staying away from things that they're not supposed to be doing. So kind of lecturing, mentoring. There's always a reminder to, in case, there's new visitors who comes into the facility for just prayer, we always remind them before and after prayer that, make sure we respect the facility, we respect the neighbors, we respect the parking volunteers, and we respect the parking flow, everyone around in the area, surrounded in the area. So, which is very important. We've always been practicing this for years, number of years, because I've been a huge witness of that, and I've been part of that. So, and I know these people. Everybody's been really. We've always been very friendly with the neighbors, with respecting, law enforcement officers, supporting them in many ways, however many ways that they ask for our support. But I think. Like I said, this place could be used for possibly for other besides congregation. Could be used for donations, donating clothing and foods and stuff like that. I mean, that was I know, very short time that I had. I'm just trying to prepare as I'm analyzing through what I went through in the past, my experience. So just kind of giving, if I had a little bit more time, I would have really brainstormed a little bit more in regards to this and give you more information. But if there's another meeting, I'll be highly ready and prepared to bring more information into this. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. So Thomas, based on the square footage, how many parking spaces did you say that are required for the entire building
For the entire site.
site?
If we're speaking more generally for general retail, we're looking at 1 per 300 square feet.
How many-
So between 112 and 134.
That's for how many square feet you said?
That's a range of between 1 per 250 square feet and 1 per 300 square feet.
What's the square footage for the full development over there?
Site,
Site.
yeah.
Excuse me, for the entire development. If you'll let me total it really quickly, I have it individually
Okay,
set up.
because they
but-
themselves would need about 60 to 100, 60, let's say on Fridays, 60 to 90. So is the rest of the parking enough for the parking ratio that you're calculating? If you take the one suite out, is the rest of the parking required for the site enough?
Let's see.
I think Thomas, what you were saying is simply based on the square footage, the number of parking spaces that are currently exist do meet the guidelines, whatever you want to call it, the
Yes.
requirements, right?
Mhm.
But follow-up question is, if those businesses were to exist independently, not within one site, would the requirement still be the same in terms of number of parking spaces required?
I see what you're saying. I would need to do that calculation as well.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking this is, to your point, I live next to that property, right? At times, that parking lot is full and people are having to park on the grass, what have you, right? Just with the businesses that currently exist. Now, the concern I have is, please believe me, I have no issue with what you're proposing, right? I'm all for it, right? But in terms of, based on my duties, on the planning commission, based on the number of vehicles especially on Fridays and during Ramadan, right? Additional vehicles that can be introduced on that site. I don't believe there will be enough parking spaces. That's the concern I have, right? So if there aren't enough parking spaces, the only option that you have is like, almost on a weekly basis is to have your people of faith park on the grass, right? That's the only option. On the field, right? On the field. And my question to the other commissioners is that something that we are okay with, having people park on the field as opposed to parking spaces, right?
Can I add a few words to that? So our volunteers have always been, wearing jackets, having lights, so they're easy to notice, and also they're highly visible where they're guiding them. So I've been part of that. Like I said, had a jacket on, wearing light, having lights on me, guiding, coming in traffic or floating traffic, going out traffic. And also when it comes to parking, we always remind everyone to carpool. Don't just, one person driving one car. So always bring 2 or 3 or 4 people in one car or in a van. And that by repeating that, we've always, brought it up to everybody's attention. And I've seen the effect of that. I mean, I've seen 4 or 5 people sitting in a van coming in. So that is also, that could also, ease the traffic flow.
Yeah, I'm sure that will, if you can make that happen, but
May I just address you one of your concerns? I think that's a very valid concern. I think I'm going to agree to that because I've been to that space multiple times. So when you see people parking on the grass, so what they're trying to avoid is to drive around because it's a one-way drive. You enter from the left, you exit from the right. They're avoiding to drive towards the back and park over there and walk all the way into the restaurant entrances. So whereas there is a whole lot of parking on the other side of the building. One is on the left, one is on the right side of the building. Having said that, Ramadan definitely is something that's going to give us time, which is a little later in the day, where we will have more empty lots. While this is why I mentioned that the Friday prayer is in the early hours of afternoon, that also starts somewhere around 2 o'clock, which is after the lunch hours mainly at the restaurant. So we may not be having direct conflict into the other businesses which are running over there if we run into a situation where we have to park into the field. Whenever we are trying to look at a space, this is our major concern too. People who are coming in should have adequate parking and no other, without usually any guidance where they can see a striped parking, they can go ahead and park. If you're parking into field, then what you're saying is right. We have to put volunteers over there who are guiding them. So they're properly parking without blocking anyone else and then being safe at the same time. So while we are for it, but what I would say is, based on we definitely want to rent the space, but we didn't move with many spaces just for the concern of not having adequate parking. So over here we see there are less conflicts. I wouldn't say it won't be none. Exceptions are always there, but we do see that there will be less conflicts because we'll be after the restaurant's peak hours of lunch on Fridays, which is going to start around 2, and restaurants are usually done 12 to 2. That's the peak hours. After that is gradually casual traffic, casual people going in there and eating. And I've literally went to that place at multiple times just to see this, that how much foot traffic they have, how much parking spaces that they have. So I think in peak hours on days when the people would want to go out and eat, they may face some congestion in parking, but that's only because people are avoiding to drive all the way to the other side, park, and then walk on the front of the restaurant.
okay. Even now coming to this meeting,
Yeah.
even though it's a Tuesday night, right?
Yeah.
The parking spaces, most of them were taken, right? This is just on a Tuesday night, right?
Yeah.
So definitely there are, and potentially there could be challenges with
Yeah, no,
having enough
that's right.
spaces.
That's right. It's about timings, right? Because right now it's like 7ish, and Tuesday night dinner hours are between like 6 to 8, right? And today, after I'm done from here, I'm gonna go do the nighttime prayer, which is late evening prayer. That's gonna start at 8. So 8 is when we do it. So at 8, we are expecting like 15 to maybe 15 people at max, 10 to 20, between 10 and 20. 15 is most at times. So I think that should not be a problem. Same is going to happen even in the times of Ramadan as well. In Ramadan, if we need to, definitely, if we're utilizing that, as one of my colleagues was mentioning, a resident over here, that we will absolutely ensure that we have volunteers over there who are guiding people to park at the right spots. And if it need be, even if we need to go into the field, they are guided by people on where to park, exactly park, and then come back. So parking definitely is one of our biggest concerns too.
Okay.
in addition to the space.
So I need your assistance in terms of kind of having an idea of the exact
Mhm.
time, right? Hours.
Yes,
So the early morning,
yes.
as you say, it's usually 90 minutes before sunrise. So what, from
Yeah,
what time to
nowadays
what
it's-
time?
Yeah, nowadays it's 6 o'clock,
Six-
6 in the morning. But
to
you know,
7
as
to-
the sunrise keeps changing, sometimes it goes
Yes.
and 4 in the morning too. So it's gonna be right after there's sunrise and before sunrise that happens. So sunrise at time is 5:30. So we're talking about 5 o'clock in let's say summers,
Okay.
summer months. And nowadays it's around 6:15. 6:15 is when we are doing our Fajr prayer, which is the early morning prayer.
So for 90 minutes. So
No, not the 90 minutes. The prayer itself is like 15 minutes thing.
15 minutes.
Yeah, 90 minutes before
Oh,
sunset is
usually
when
90
we
minutes.
we
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
15,
overall
20
it's
minutes.
15 minutes.
Okay. You got noon, the afternoon. The sunset.
The sunset is exactly at the sunset.
Sunset,
So
okay.
that keeps on changing. Nowadays it's around 5 o'clock. Again, we are expecting 15 to 20 people
Okay.
over there and daily prayers.
The nighttime is
The
usually 90
nighttime
minutes
is
after
about
sunset.
an hour
Okay.
and 90 minutes after sunset. So is when it starts, but then we have a long time about that. So what we're doing now is we set the time. If it's getting earlier, we set the time at 8 o'clock. So for the next 2 months or so, it's gonna be set at 8 o'clock.
And then the Juma on Friday noon starts in noon. It goes for about 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, so that's right. So what we do is nowadays it's happening at 1:45, and the second one is happening at 2:30. We are dividing it. Today we are doing it at Hampton Inn in the Virginia Gateway.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are using their premises for Friday prayer. So one is 1:45, the other one is 2:30.
2:30.
So it's 30 minutes each.
2:30 to the last one is 2:30, 30 minutes to 3 o'clock to 3:15.
Right.
And then during Ramadan, it lasts for 30 days.
It lasts for 30 days.
And you have sunset through nighttime. When we say nighttime,
Okay, yeah.
what is the
Good
latest?
one. So that is that's more like it's gonna start. If I'll just talk about nowadays, it's winters. So Ramadan is gonna come in March. In March, what's gonna happen is it's gonna be somewhere between 6:30, 6:30 rather. It's between not 6:30. I'm sorry. It can be between 7:30 and 9:30. I'll say roughly 2 hours.
9:30.
7:30 and 9:30. But the times I'm just giving you rough estimates. The times do change here and there based on the how days are changing, how daylight saving is changing. Roughly, I'm just giving you these estimates. If you want more accurate estimates, maybe for the current year of Ramadan, I can provide you exact estimates of what we are thinking. I can email that to Thomas, and he can share with the team.
And the number of these expected attendees, is it based on what you are currently experiencing? Are you looking ahead?
Well, I think we will be looking at what the space can accommodate. What we cannot go more than that. So if people see the space can accommodate, let's say 100 people, so we cannot go over that. So they're gonna have to go back or maybe find another space. There is space limitation, just like over here. If we have seating for 10 people, other people will have to stand, or if it's full, they're gonna have to go away. So the space is based on how many people can pray in there. In the way we do congregation, we put in a straight lines and these things, these sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So currently you have limitations because of where you're having it
Currently, we do not
Hampton.
have a place to worship. Right now, we're only doing Friday service
at Hampton.
at Hampton. We are renting for in the afternoon. That's that. We cannot do any other prayers, not even Ramazans at the moment.
Just curious, what is the square footage of the space that you're conducting?
Square footage at over there,
Yeah.
that's roughly 900 square feet.
Okay. And how-
Over there, and this one square feet, I think, Thomas, if keep me honest, you have things in front of you. That's roughly 2,000 square feet. That's right. Yeah.
So double. So how many people are attending the Friday prayers
Friday
currently?
prayer. I think I'll say, if I'm not wrong, about 60 adults.
60 adults.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Thomas, it'll be interesting, and again, there might not be a difference, but again, if these businesses that currently occupy the site were to exist outside of that site, independent, separately, like any of our businesses, what will they be required in terms of parking spaces? I'll be interested to know, that.
Definitely. I can bring calculations back to the planning commission for that. Let me say right now, I did look at parking related to assembly regarding especially this use. Currently per the zoning ordinance, 1 per 4 seats of design capacity. So at the regular prayer services, we're looking at 5 to 8 parking spots required at the minimum. And then for proposed use with special services, if we're hitting the maximum of 150 attendees, that would be 38 spaces.
Okay, 38.
But like I said, I will look at piece by piece, the individual parking tabulations for each tenant space per GFA, and then I will sum that as well.
Can you check the Prince William County parking requirement? Are you checking Haymarket parking?
I'm checking Haymarket zoning ordinance, yes.
I don't remember if it's too old. Can you check also Prince William? I think so. You're saying it's 1 vehicle per 4 seats.
Yes.
Okay, it seems low, but if it is what it is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So forgive my ignorance on this, but the actual property that's there, the land itself around the building, is that also owned by the owner of the building?
The entire parcel, yes.
Yeah. So if there's a lack of parking, is it really on the owner of that building to request more parking and not so much the people applying for special purpose use of this? But if there's not parking and stuff there, that's like if you rented to any other tenant. It's on him to make sure there's more. Or if there's a limit, and one of the businesses, oh, we're not having a parking out, that's on him as the owner of the building, right? So that's something I'm keeping into consideration here. This is just for the use of her special use. Now, I know this also affects traffic, which we have to think about. But as far as if there was any other tenant that wasn't in the special purpose, it wouldn't be discussion of the parking and all, they wouldn't be coming to us for all this, right? It would be solely on the owner of the property.
Yes.
But I think the part of the requirements, when applicants come to the town with a proposal, use proposal, right? We need to make sure that there are enough parking spaces to accommodate what they want to use in this case, that space for, right? Yeah.
But they're asking in this case to use it for a special purpose. Whereas any other tenant that would be coming in there, that part of the issue would still be on the owner and not for this board.
Yeah, if you take.
So I don't want to, I'm kind of curious if we're beginning to blur what the proposal, what the purpose of this special permit use is.
If you refer to page 15, the reason they submitted a special use permit is because what they use is not by right, right? It requires a special use permit. So that's why they're here. Otherwise, it would not have been necessary for them to be in front of,
And
To
that's kind of my
clarify
point.
too, oh, sorry.
That's kind of my point.
So the concern more is perhaps I'm reviewing this maybe off of overall site versus the individual tenant space in terms of parking.
Yes, because right now the way it's zoned is by special purpose, therefore having to submit for that reason. So occupancy size, if it goes over code for the fire department, that's them or the owner of the building. If it's the parking and he owns the land around the building and there's place for parking, then it's on the owner of the building to apply for more parking, right? So that's something, to me, that's almost something separate.
Mhm.
I think so if we need more parking, it will eventually fall under the owner. So the owner has to pay for the additional parking, which can fall under the tenant. So tenant might have to give money funds for that improvement or something.
And in terms of, I just want to bring up an earlier point about the expected vehicles. I don't think it means to assume that it's fully, in my understanding, it would be fully, you need parking space for all of those vehicles. There could be a drop-off aspect. But I think to some of the bigger questions here related to parking, obviously there are certain uses in the building today, and one can make an assumption of the maximum number of uses in the building, even by right, and the parking there. Well, it's still, so it's my concern to see that, again, the number is 150, 185. I don't believe there are that many striped parking spaces there. I wonder, is it possible to have some sort of, I don't know, parking study or something like that to see how the whole building operates today and the parking therein? And if you were to add these other uses, or in another way of saying it too, if there's a recommendation to sort of provide managed parking. I mean, if the owner is all access to all of that, I mean, there's not necessarily a question on like shared parking or things like that, but just seeing, how it would kind of operate today, and could it accommodate those, and what sort of parking management practices might be recommended. That's just a thought, to sort of maybe clarify both what the parking is that's there, how it's being utilized, how it might be utilized, and sort of ways to mitigate any potential, impacts if there is not enough parking.
Yeah. And something to consider, again, this is also for you. The applicant in the past had proposed developing the fields, right, for different uses, which will mean that those fields might go tomorrow or at some point, right?
Yes.
If that happens, then
Well,
if you have excess vehicles, then where do those vehicles park, right? This is just the
I think,
background
it's a fair
information,
point.
right? And this is looking ahead, right? That's not just now, but also we need to consider what might happen on that site in the future, right? So
That's
we
right.
need to-
I'm just I want to add a few things over here. One is when I was reading about the parking requirements in Prince William County, it pretty much goes by for every 300 square feet you need to have one parking space. So this is how it's given usually in the commercial buildings. So 300 square feet, one parking spot needs to be there for that. And over here, based on square footage, I think the previous use of QB Park was for the old town of Haymarket used to be there. And this is why there are adequate parking spaces even that exist today. So, and the field absolutely is part of the whole land, and they can develop it anyway. I would rather want them to develop it into another parking lot whenever they're developing it for, let's say, additional spaces.
Yeah.
So I would think they are looking into that. But the one thing that I find different, and I talked to Thomas about this, was in Prince William County, what happens is if you have less than 50 people occupying the space, it can go in a mercantile, and for that you do not need any permit. If you're going above 50 people, then you're going to need that. So I really wanted to take up that rule and apply that. Okay, if we keep our count below 50, can we utilize it? We still do our Friday prayer and keep on going with this SUP. But what I learned was if the nature of the use is religious, even for one person, it has to be an SUP. This is why we are here today. Having said that, my obvious thing was the premises has already 3 public assembly usages, which is happening over there. And a fourth would not be any different in usage on most days. When I say on good days, that includes even that, because in a fitness center, they can have one program that goes on and a lot of people come in. Same happening. You have a music night on a restaurant. A lot of people are going to come in, similar to what's going to happen on our side on days when more people are coming in. It's just like the nature of the use is religious, and want to make sure that we're adhering to every law that the town of Haymarket has, and we are all comfortable with that, because I know for a fact I live here too. I'm going to have to pass through this road, and when I face some congestion, 5 o'clock every day, if I'm coming from Linden Hall all the way over here, I have to wait for 2 or 3 different traffic lights on Catawba while coming towards Washington Street. So people are going to face that. Let's be honest on that. On Sunday service that happens, on Friday service, we expect that too. We just want to make sure it is handled in the best possible manner we can handle this. And for that, we will ensure that we have our parking attendants. We have people, and if we can get support from the police of the town as well to assist with the traffic flow, apparently that can be gauged as well. But I do hear your point for any future development that which I'm not aware of. I'm certain right now the owner is on his discretion if he want to do that. I'm hoping they will consider parking spaces.
So have you had a discussion with the owner regarding if there aren't any enough parking spaces? You know, people that go to
Yeah.
to this place of faith being able to park on the fields. Is that something that you've discussed with the owner, or?
So I'll be honest, I have not discussed that yet. I can talk to Connor about that. But when I went over there, even though a lot of parking spaces were still there, I saw at least 2 cars parked on the field, right? So my understanding was if there will be an excess of vehicles, maybe we can utilize that, but I can specifically talk about that to the owner as well, in case we can utilize it if required, because that's another thing perhaps for us to look into as well.
Yeah, so personally, I'll be interested to find out more about the parking space requirements if we were to consider each of those businesses separately, right? As separate establishments existing separately. So, and again, based on my observation, I live next to the property again. You know, at times I see the parking space is all taken, right? People are
Exhausted,
parking. So I do have concerns about that. And also, I think we need to consult with our police department to see in terms of directing traffic, especially during Friday, most likely also maybe during Ramadan, right? It's something that they're willing to assist. I'm not sure. I don't know what arrangement we currently have with the church, right? With the Baptist church to allow us to direct traffic, right? I think we need to look into that as well, because potentially you might need their assistance,
Yes.
right? And in terms of maximum number of occupants, do we have any idea as to what the maximum number of occupants that will be allowed by the county or the fire marshal? We have no idea, do we?
That is something I can look into. I started initially looking into this prior to today's meeting. I can do further research on that. So it is on my radar that I can bring back in the next meeting to discuss this application.
Yes, it would seem, again, just a question of management of the parking, of the traffic, what's there. And then, of course, to the chair's point, right, fire marshal building occupancy there. And I will say, I mean, it's a very interesting site because even sometimes on, weekday mornings, you might see some cars parked there. So it is fairly used regularly, I think. So it just good to clarify that. And again, against Haymarket requirements and things like that. I mean, the county can certainly provide, with their information, can certainly provide details maybe as a way to approach it, but certainly, against the requirements of Haymarket is what we would probably would want to look into. So I think those are some of the general concerns there. Again, I think there's a lot of a lot of positives here, a lot of commendable things, but again, to look at this aspect, parking and traffic and those kind of things.
Definitely. I'll do my research on individual tenant spaces for what each of their parking tabulations would be. I'll get a more solid number on assembly parking tabulations. And I can also look into the occupancy standards as well. In the meantime, as well, I'll discuss with the applicant any other information they may want to provide to the commission as discussed. Regards in terms of timing, splitting of congregations, those kind of things, and I can give you a better schedule for that for your consideration.
Let's also check with the police, with the chief,
Yes.
or just.
And I'll look at existing conditions on current religious uses as well and how the police manage that.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So, I mean, if it's okay with you, basically, we would like to look into those things that Thomas mentioned,
No,
right?
I-
Instead of
I
rushing
think that's
into
perfectly
making a
fine.
decision now, right? We would like to, consider what Thomas finds out prior to our next meeting, and then maybe make a decision during our next meeting
Okay.
instead of today.
That's a month away, right?
Yes, a month away.
Whatever the process goes towards, absolutely, my take will be to do it as quickly as we can. But I do not want to, bypass any steps. Make sure that all of you are comfortable, and that also benefits us as well into thinking as in whatever your concerns are. Apparently, we're going to face the same once we rent the space. Having said that, I just want to reiterate that. Certain challenges will always arise with no matter what type of thing we start with. But if we work together, to find some solutions, some suitable solutions to it. We can go ahead with that. Having said that, the biggest concern we today has, we do not have a place of worship. We want to make sure that we have that, and we give that to, and we at least our kids deserve to have one such space where they can freely go and practice their religion in congregation. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thank you. And Thomas, also, can you look into in terms of going from 150, 185, where the additional 35 parking spaces are coming from?
Yes, I can look into that.
Yeah.
And one other thought did come into my mind as well, speaking, I mean, again, obviously the building is as it's placed, and certainly these suites are, again, as I mentioned earlier, the kind of the further, further away from kind of the main bulk of the parking. I'd be curious too, to think about as sort of pedestrian access aspects. If the parking is here, how would, the attendees make it to the space and vice versa? I mean, it must be understood through the building. I mean, it has to, right, as it exists. But I'd just be curious, anything could be spoken towards that aspect, towards people getting from their vehicles to the building, just given the locations of the suites. I would be curious on that front. So thank you.
I'll look into that as well.
Okay.
Great. I'll be in touch with you all for next steps. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thanks. All
Thank you
right.
for your time.
All right, next agenda item, 1 mile review, Carver Road subdivision.
Yes, so this is a rezoning application at the county found within the 1 mile radius of the town's borders. It's currently approximately 41.27 acres. It's about near the intersection of Old Carolina Road and Carver Road. There's a section of the subdivision that goes directly against Buckland Mills Elementary School. Before I go any further into the application as well, I was made aware previous to the meeting of the need for one of the commissioners to recuse themselves. I'll give them that opportunity now.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. Yes, I will need to recuse myself from consideration of this application due to potential conflict of interest.
All right, thanks.
Additionally, the home types that will be proposed there are 110 single-family detached units. So very similar to what is existing in the area right now. I've attached general design policies and proposals associated with the application, as well as a brief bounds and also engineering specs where it comes to E&S, those kinds of things, in general site layout with landscaping and traffic as well for your consideration. I will say the proposed use being the 110 single-family detached units, I don't have many concerns about that because it's very similar to what is in the surrounding area. Obvious concerns would be traffic. I did some research into some of the proffer statements. It looks, a lot of mention was made to remote classrooms. Now that could accommodate for some of the increase in student population at certain levels. So other than traffic and school population concerns or comments, I'm open to any other comments the planning commission has for this application on behalf of Haymarket.
So Thomas, it looks like what they're proposing is in line with the 2040 comprehensive plan, county, right?
Yes,
In terms of the zoning. So based on that, and again, to your point, the concern would be traffic, especially on Jefferson, right, Old Carolina to Jefferson. And this is not the only development that's being proposed. There is also another development. I think I still see the public hearing sign when going to 29. I think that's still on the table. So if we were to consider both developments in terms of the number of homes, right? And then ultimately the number of vehicles and so forth, trips per day, I think it's going to continue to be a challenge, right? So those are the concerns I have. And again, a strain on our school system in terms of currently, they pointed out that Ronald Reagan has exceeded its capacity, right? So this is going to add even, more challenges in terms of sending more middle school students to that school, right? So it's going to result in more issues, for that school. So those are the concerns I personally have. I don't know about the other commissioners.
I think so. I have to also rescue myself from this one.
You have to recuse yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. Didn't realize till now.
Thank you. We can still discuss this since we're not voting on it as well, since
Yeah.
it's just both of
You
you two
just-
now.
So my thought on this is, as was mentioned, it will increase the number of students and stuff going to the school system. However, the school system belongs to the county. And so it'll be a county problem to resolve and fix if that's the issue.
Mhm.
However, the traffic is more of a concern because it directly is a town issue coming into Haymarket. So.
And the reason I'm pointing out the school, further strains on the school is because it's the town's residents, specifically Ronald Reagan. My family struggled with this, right? Buckland Mills and so forth, where the schools were at an overcapacity that resulted in them having to take classes in trailers, basically. Let's call it that, right? But it is up to the county. But the issue here is the county, in terms of development in the school system, are not in sync, right? The county keeps on approving all these developments that's resulting in capacity issues at the school, and the school system is playing catch up, always playing catch up, right?
Yeah.
And so far that they haven't made the necessary changes in order for the county development to be in line with the school, right? With the
Oh, I
Prince
agree
William
with you.
County
Yeah.
Schools. So that's the reason pointing out the challenges that this may result into when it comes to capacity-related issues at our local schools. The schools where our town residents, the kids are residents of town kids go to attend, right? But yes, it is up to the county to address it eventually. But
To Commissioner Young's point and also, to Commissioner Young's point and also to Commissioner Banner's point, I'll look back into, it is county's purview when it comes to school districts. I'll look into what the profit conditions say. I'll do my best to make a comment related to Haymarket and
Yeah.
the school district we fall in within that.
Maybe with additional revenue, they could build another new school.
it's not enough to build another
I don't
school.
wish
I can
to-
tell you, it's not enough.
I don't wish to be the one that says that. I don't want to
Yeah.
brag them.
It is not enough. Okay.
But with those in mind, I'll keep any comments, if I can, focused on traffic and school related. With that, we can probably close this agenda item.
Yes, I think we can, yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right, next agenda item is, let's allow our commissioners to come back. All right, next agenda item is Planning Commission 2025 meeting schedule.
In your packet, I provided you a draft of the meeting schedule for 2025. You only have one conflict, which would be in November. Your meeting scheduled date is the same day as Veterans Day, which we would be closed that day. So staff recommends that you would have to pick an alternate date. So staff recommends that we meet on Wednesday, the 12th, as opposed to
Sorry, what page is the?
it's on the last page, packet 36.
Okay. Looks good to me. I don't know whether.
Good to me as well.
Okay, so without objection, we're going to change the meeting date for November to reflect November 12th,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to old business.
The main item of old business that I have is related to the Chick-fil-A SUP. Currently, it's being reviewed. Public hearing was held at the town council on the December 2nd meeting. We're currently still discussing that application in a work session and a regular meeting in January on the 6th. And, oh, go ahead.
Any changes in the?
No changes in staff recommendation, and discussion still continues on the removal of landscaping, other site alterations that would be happening on site and in the periphery of the location.
It was
The-
going to be part of my update. So during that meeting, last town council meeting, they provided these alternatives, right? In terms of addressing the potential parking issues next to the bank. So
So they're widening the barrier between the drive-through and bank side?
right here,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, are they widening the barrier where they are going to have the,
Between the bank and the drive-through, there is now in a couple of those proposals, proposed hardscape curb now instead of just the delineators.
okay. But they're going to be
Yeah.
moving things around next to they're going to be, what are the changes are they proposing next to the bank with this?
Essentially, it's the most viable option of the three, the angled parking. If that is implemented, it would remove, to make it happen, they'd remove landscaping on Virginia National Bank's property on the front facade and be a modification of the sidewalk.
I think so. Yeah, these are better options. If anybody would like to.
Yeah, look at these. Okay,
Other than that, I have no other old business.
okay. New business?
Aside from continuation of discussion of this application, I currently have no new business.
All right. Do we have anyone to provide ARB updates? Is there any ARB updates?
Yes, I can. We, in our last meeting and over the past couple of months, there for the Blight Drive Townhomes submission that we've reviewed as a commission, we're reviewing there was a review of the certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the single-family units that are sitting on the site right now. That has now been given conditional approval. I'm set to issue approval for them for that in line with the site plan being finalized. Right now, we're still currently reviewing the elevations proposed for that site. As far as other updates, general signage, other exterior updates for a couple of the Crossroads Village properties, specifically Kitty Academy. Other than that, though, no major ARB updates.
All right, thanks, Thomas. In terms of town council updates, during our last town council meeting, there were some recognitions. We had the Christmas tree lighting. Let me see, farmers market, the season recap, and then of course the the town council considered the Chick-fil-A SUP. The town council, in addition to considering the recommendations from the staff, they also considered our recommendation, right? So basically, based on the fact that they provided these alternatives, there are a couple of things that Thomas is looking into, and during our next town council meeting, which is, I believe, January 6th, we're gonna have both a work session as well as our regular meeting. During that work session, we're gonna be discussing this, for the most part, we're gonna be discussing the SUP, these alternatives, and I believe during that meeting, the January 6th meeting, that's when we will make a final decision as to whether or not to approve or deny the special use permit. And I think that's about it. Not missing anything, am I?
Strategic plan.
Oh, yes. Yes, we did cover the strategic plan, and I think that was approved, right? A couple of further updates to yeah. That's it.
Not town council related, but the Christmas event is on Saturday from 2 to 6.
And then we considered Mr. Baker's resignation, yeah.
Resignation is December the 2nd. He's now been sworn in.
Yes, I missed the most exciting part. We were all sworn in, except Mary, right?
Mary, who's
Mary.
going to the
Oh, okay.
office separately.
So we were all sworn in on, during the last meeting, so it's exciting. Okay. Anyone want to discuss? No? All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
I have the motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
I.
Aye.
Aye.